The bottom line is simple. Things haven't changed from a month ago, but things are much better for Democrats than they were before the fighting began in Iran. The best indicator of that is a question that we ask about, which party do you trust more on the issue that matters most to you? Now, the way we get to this, we ask them about different issues and how important they are and who they trust, and then we ask them, which is the one most important issue to you? Right now, 39% of voters tell us that they trust Democrats more on their top issue. 36% trust the Republicans more. So the Democrats have a 3-point advantage. Before the war, the Republicans had a 6-point advantage, 43% to 37%. So we're talking about a 9-point swing. Obviously, very good news for the Democrats. It's been stable a couple of months in a row. So we're seeing potentially a significant change in the electorate and their perception of the partisan dynamics. There is a nugget of what might be considered good news for the Republicans. It's a detail. I don't want to get too carried away with it, but the number of people saying they trust Democrats isn't really going up. It went from 37% before the war to 39% right now. What's happened is trust in Republicans has fallen 7 points since the fighting began on the issue that people consider most important. Why does that matter? When people say, I trust this party more, and then they say, I'm not really sure, they have a chance to bounce back. If somebody said, I used to trust Republicans and now I trust Democrats, their position is a little more firm. So this suggests there is still some hope for the Republicans that when the fighting ends, if some of these other issues pop up, the confidence will bounce back a little bit and we'll have a different dynamic. By the way, a couple of details, only 2 issues are considered very important by more than 70% of voters. That's the economy and a subset of the economy, inflation. On both of those, the Democrats are now trusted more than Republicans. Before the war, Republicans were trusted more. The other significant issue is immigration. Just 46% of voters now say immigration is a very important issue. That's way down from earlier, and it's partly because border security has improved. Another point on that immigration topic, there's not really a Republican advantage anymore. 40% trust the R's, 39% trust the D's. All of these numbers suggest a very good midterm issue, a very good midterm for the Democrats if the election were held today. But of course, it's held in November, and there's still time for things to change. Iran, lots of news this week. Deals may be coming, maybe not. Maybe the president will sign off on it. Maybe he won't. Through it all, voters really haven't changed their views at all. 38% are still in favor of the action. 51% are opposed. 2/3 of Republicans are supportive. 3/4 of Democrats are not. One interesting tidbit, the Trump base is still solidly supportive of the president on this issue. 84% of those Trump Republicans still favor the actions in Iran. We also took a quick look at what people think will happen after the fighting ends, and very specifically, we asked if gas prices will fall quickly. Voters are divided. 45% say likely to fall quickly. 47% say not likely. There is a partisan divide on this, but it's not nearly as stark as you might expect. About 58% of Republicans say gas prices are likely to fall. About 56% of Democrats say they're not. Sizable minorities in both parties say that take the opposite view. I think the real message here is people don't know what to expect. In fact, only 1/3 of voters have a strong opinion as to whether it's very likely or not at all likely to fall. 2/3 are saying we don't know. And ultimately, of course, what really matters is not what people expect today, but what will happen after the fighting ends. If the price of gas comes down dramatically, that will have one impact. If it doesn't, then the news will continue to be good for the Democrats. Now, finally, imperfect candidates. Been a lot of talk about this since Ken Paxton won the Republican nomination here in Texas. And not obviously, he won it with the support and the endorsement of Donald Trump. That Trump endorsement remains gold in the Republican Party primary process. As I said a couple days ago, Ken Paxton is still the clear favorite to win the Senate seat here in Texas. Now, the people may be a little surprised at that. Some people online and in political circles are deeply concerned or express deep concern about Paxton's some of his baggage. There's a couple of points to consider. First of all, voters aren't looking for a saint, and they don't think Ken Paxton is running against a saint. 67% of voters say that most members of Congress are less ethical than most everyday Americans. So they're assuming that, yeah, we know a little bit about Ken Paxton, and I'm a little nervous about that. Maybe don't know about Tallarico as much, but he's a politician, therefore something is going on. Now, despite all that, there have been some polls showing the race very close between Paxton and Tallarico. I think those are underestimating Paxton's prospects for a couple of reasons. First, this is an artifact of polling, not the reality of the race. If you do a poll and you ask about who would you vote for, Tallarico or Paxton, Tallarico or Cornyn, the natural inclination of a Cornyn supporter, and most of them are going to say, I'll vote for whoever the Republican is, but a decent number of Cornyn supporters will say, if Paxton is the nominee, I'm going to stay home. A few of them might even say, well, I'll vote for Tallarico before I vote for Paxton. And I understand that. That's part of the heat of the primary process. As soon as the primary is decided, that begins to dissipate. And I would expect in a few weeks, we'll see a wave of polls with Paxton doing a little bit better. One recent poll, just to give you a sense of this, showed that Paxton was only getting 85% of the Republican vote. That will begin to increase now that Cornyn is out of the race. And obviously, you add a 10 or 15% of Republicans in the state of Texas, it begins to have an impact. The second thing that will happen, the race will probably still look close going into September, but after Labor Day, what I like to call the political gravity of a state takes hold, and that will bolster Paxton's numbers even more. What you'll begin to see is more and more people aligning with their general partisan preference. And look, Texas is still Texas. It is still a red state. The Democrats do have a chance for an upset here, but it would take things to change pretty dramatically from where they are right now. Just be a little bit cautious in interpreting the early polls and assume that at the end of the day, if nothing dramatic changes in the political environment or what we know about the candidates, Paxton will probably do a little bit better.